Hi, and welcome to this video, 5 signs that you might be experiencing a spiritual awakening.
Life is a winding road.
I'm going to be talking to you today about spiritual awakenings from my perspective and the experiences that I've had, and I will be including what I've learned from other people as well. And as I always will, there will be links below in the description to some channels that I feel will be very helpful because they dive a little bit deeper into the experience, a lot deeper in some cases. I want to give you a general idea if this is something you might be going through. You might have found yourself here at this video because you're feeling confused or lost, or you're not really sure what's happening in your world. You might be feeling a lot of crazy, strange movement that you're not familiar with. So we're going to cover all of those things just to give you an idea of whether that's what's happening for you or not. So what is an awakening? In the Urban Dictionary, it's defined as being spiritually aware of the universe and direct metaphysical connection to one's own being and the connection it has to all life forces. I think that's a really great description because what happens is you start to open up. You start to, all of the negative energy or traumas or past hurts, past troubles that we've sort of pushed down and try to keep out of sight and out of mind over the years, that all starts to come up because it can't stay buried forever. It needs to come up and be acknowledged. It needs to clear away because you need to become a more clear channel for whatever your purpose here is on this earth. There can be a few variables that cause what's known as the catalyst to going through a spiritual awakening. You might be in a relationship that's quite toxic that is causing the catalyst of your awakening to begin. Doesn't have to be. It could be any kind of traumatic event that's caused the awakening to happen. I have heard people who have been in car accidents and have either almost died or have died and then come back. That was the catalyst to their awakening. Anybody, I believe, I could be wrong, but I believe anybody could go through an awakening. And I do understand that, or at least I believe, more and more people are going through awakenings every day. And it's a really important thing to understand because it can be very isolating, it can be very lonely, challenging. Honestly, sometimes you might think you're going crazy. You may not understand why things are no longer working for you that used to. Relationships could be changing. You may feel like you don't fit in. Maybe you have felt for your whole life that you don't fit in, and now you're feeling more and more places and people that you used to fit with no longer feels right. That's because your energy is changing, your energy is shifting. Like I say, it's coming up, all that negative kind of toxic energy that has been holding you back is now wanting to come back. It wants you to look at it and recognize it, understand the lesson that was attached to that energy, to that traumatic event, because all traumatic events, all events in life have lessons for us. They hold lessons for us. And until we decide to learn that lesson, we will continue to go through those traumas. That shows up in the form of repeating patterns, as an example, repeating relationship pattern. Until you learn the lesson of what that relationship is trying to show you, you might break up with somebody and say, I'm done with that kind of behavior. And then your next relationship, that behavior is coming back to you, maybe even a little bit more strongly. Because you need to look at it, you need to understand it, and you need to wake up to why it's happening. It's very important for us to understand our soul and our soul's purpose. And that's what awakenings will bring for us. An understanding that we have a soul, if we didn't already have that understanding, an understanding that we have a purpose, if we didn't already have that. I feel like people who go through awakenings have already, to some extent, had experiences that have been slowly kind of, I don't want to say drip feeding, but maybe drip awakening, drip awakening us. Personally, I've had experiences my entire life that people would call paranormal. And that made it a little bit easier for me to kind of go with the flow of the awakening. The awakening itself was very challenging. Things happened that I could never have imagined. I had experiences that I never thought that I would. And this happened for me during my 20-year IT career, information technology career, which is a very logic-based career. You use your reason, you do a lot of research, There's a logical path to follow in the processes of information technology. There's a lot of processes. So going through something that's not necessarily linear, it's not necessarily rational, it doesn't necessarily make sense while you're going through it. Going through something like that and trying to make sense of it can be very, very challenging. So our physical self is only part of what makes up who we are. I like to call these avatars, where our soul comes down into these avatars at whatever point in time we've pre-decided to go through this life, to learn the lessons, and to evolve the soul for future, whatever the future is, whatever the soul's future is. It'll be happening long after this avatar has expired. I like to describe the process of soul planning to come down into this avatar as this. So before we come into the avatar, we're souls, right? We're hanging out on the soul level, whatever that might be. And we've got a soul tribe with us. We're gathered all around and we're all planning our next life that we're all going to come into together to teach each other and help each other learn and evolve our souls. So, I see it like there's this huge arena that we're looking down, and in this arena is every avatar who has ever been and ever will be that we can choose from. It's like going to the store and saying, I want those shoes. You look down at the arena and you say, I want that avatar. So you can choose as a soul, I want to choose that character, that avatar, because that avatar's life path best suits what I need to learn for my evolution, to evolve my soul to the next step. I also feel like as we're going through all of this planning, so each of our soul tribe members has agreed to play a certain role, and so those souls in this life become those major people that you meet. It could be bosses, family members for sure, relationship partners for sure, maybe not every single one, but I kind of think that every person that we've met and had an interaction with that is a bit of a meaningful interaction is part of our soul tribe. And our soul tribe, I don't think, I could be wrong, other people can comment on this, but I don't think that our soul tribe is always just those people that we get along with. There are people that are explaining about many different types of soul contracts, soul relationships, soul togetherness, and that kind of thing, and it's a lot of information. There's soul tribe, there's karmic partners, twin flame partners, soul partners, I can't even think of them all. For me, it's just easier to think of it, we're all one big happy soul tribe family, and even though we might get along on the soul level, when we come down to the earth, we're here to teach each other. It's like being in a play. I'm going to play the role of Wendy. You're going to play the role of insert your name here. And when we interact, that was the drama we decided on before we even came to this earth. So how does having a spiritual awakening impact our lives? It does change your life enormously. It has such a huge impact. And I've read where some people have said that their awakening happened within a day, within a couple of days, within a few weeks. Mine has been years. And honestly, I do believe that awakenings happen over the lifetime. You're not constantly in awakening state, like in the meat and potatoes of it, but you go through moments of awakening. And some of them are less severe. Some of them are very severe. Some of them will challenge you like nothing else. So it has a big impact on your life. You will more than likely, because the energy needs to change, because you've been sort of growing up in this one way with a certain set of beliefs, a certain set of likes and understandings about life. But then the universe is going to come along and say, okay, you know what, it's time for you to morph into who you need to be for your soul's purpose, to fulfill your soul's purpose. And everybody on the planet has a purpose. In order for that to happen, if you haven't been already kind of going through that process, the Spirit's going to come along with some kind of traumatic event, some sort of catalyst to get you on that path. So it is going to feel uncomfortable. It is going to feel like sometimes you're untethered, like, floating around in the universe with no anchor to this earth because you've lost everything. You might lose your job, you might lose your money, you might lose your partners, your friendships, your family, all of it. You might lose all of it. If you've already been through one, I don't know how severe yours has been, but maybe you could comment on that because it would help other people. It will help all of us to understand sort of the overall what people go through. For me, it was a 10-year long process, this last sort of phase of my awakening. I went through health issues. I went through loss of family members, loss of friends, loss of jobs. So you no longer live in your ego. You might have started off in a place where you had a job that was really good. It paid you a lot of money. You had a lot of status, nice car, nice house, nice family. I'm sure you've heard all of this before, but not feeling fulfilled, something missing within you. Although from the outside, someone else might look at your life and say, you have it all. What's wrong? What are you complaining about? It doesn't mean you have it all just because you have material abundance. Material abundance is one part of life, but having that emotional fulfillment, having that connection to something bigger than ourselves it's like the most fulfilling thing I think a person can have. That is where your contentment comes from. That is where your sense of self comes from. So your ego is going to dissolve. Part of the purpose of the awakening is to dissolve that ego and let your real, true spiritual self come through. You can balance both, but one being more prominent than the other, even the spiritual part being more prominent than the ego, can cause some problems. So the key is to get to a place where you're feeling balanced about it all. Maybe you've had some experiences. Maybe you've had some experiences that we would call paranormal. So you've seen ghosts, or you've heard voices outside of your mind, or you've had visions or precognitive experiences like prophetic dreaming, knowing things are going to happen before they happen. Your intuition is starting to become stronger. It's starting to become more prominent. It's starting to say, listen to me. Listen to me. I am your guidance system, and I'm going to help you get through this and onto the path that you're here to be on. One of my upcoming videos is going to be how to train your intuition. And I'm going to talk about that a lot because I've come up with a lot of fun exercises that I did myself at my job, my IT job, my last one, that helped me get through the days on that job. Because once you're going through the awakening, once you understand that you have a different purpose and a different you can't always just leave your current career. Sometimes you got to work through both. It's like when you're in a relationship and you live in a house together, but then you break up. You can't necessarily move out right away, so you got to find ways to cope, right? So in that video, I will have some examples for you that you can try. I want to give you guys tools. I want to give you exercises, things to try to see if they'll be helpful for you, because I found a lot of this stuff very helpful for me. You're going to want to spend more time in nature, probably. Nature is the soothing kind of warm hug that we all want and need that we don't always get from the people in our lives. Being in nature is very calming. The color green is very healing. So the trees, the green of the trees, listening to the sounds of nature is very healing. Sometimes if I can't get out into nature, I'll find a video on YouTube that has sounds of nature, and I'll just listen to that for half an hour with my eyes closed, laying back on the couch or in my bed or whatever, just listening and breathing and allowing it to flow over me. And it is a recharge. It is a great recharge. Almost as good as getting a massage. Almost. One of the things that is very common, I feel, with people is that we don't love ourselves enough. Not even close. Not nearly enough to be able to love other people in a very deep and meaningful way, a deep and connected way. And so going through these awakenings shows us all about that. It really shows us the mirror of who we are and how we treat ourselves and how we feel about ourselves deep down, most importantly. So I've been seeing it like, you know how when you look through one of those kaleidoscope type cylindric type things, it's a kaleidoscope, and then you see all the bits and pieces, all the fractures. Each one of those, think of each one of those pieces as a person or event in your life that's just reflecting what you're showing it. So if you're showing it discontent for yourself, discontent in your life, that's what's going to reflect back at you. And so as you go through an awakening, you'll start to understand that more and more, and you'll start to be more compassionate with yourself and more self-loving. Physically, your diet will change. What you eat, what you drink. You may not be able to handle alcohol anymore. You may not be able to handle meat anymore. You may not be able to handle certain types of vegetables. Processed food might really upset your stomach. And this goes hand in hand with perhaps having more illnesses than you've ever had before. As this energy comes up, it does cause these physical symptoms. And so you'll get more colds. You might get the flu more often. You might have, different things going on internally. You might get anxiety. You might have panic attacks. You might feel like you're having heart fluctuation, like heart fluttering. And maybe you think you're having a heart attack. Always, always, always consult your doctor. Never, ever use energy healing as a replacement for anything else. Energy healing is in tune with, in line with, in part of the whole. So I always say our whole, our holistic is the physical, the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. So energy healing is just one part of our healing toolkit. Allopathic, naturopathic, diet, all of that are other parts that are equally important. The thing is, I just think that in this sort of stage of life, energy healing isn't as prominent as it should be, because it is equally important as allopathic healing, as naturopathic, psychological healing. Energy healing is often the missing key when someone can't get past something and they've been to the doctor, they've been to the psychologist, they've been to all the things, nobody can figure anything out. Energy healing is the key that's missing, and so that's why I'm very passionate about it. You may find yourself bailing on plans that you've made with people more often. You may decide at the last minute, I'm too uncomfortable to go. I just need to stay by myself. I'm really going through it right now, and I can't make whatever the plan was. I can't make it. And it can be challenging, especially if you're used to being extroverted. I've always been very extroverted. I've always, there was never a party that I didn't want to go to. But then after I started to go through this awakening, I couldn't anymore. I was excited to make the plan the day that I was making the plan, usually because the date was further out. But then when the day got closer and closer, I'd get more and more anxious. And I'd think, what's my excuse? How am I getting out of this? I'm not going, but I need to come up with something believable. So I'm just not going to make any more plans. It's easier that way. Oh, you may cry a lot. As you're releasing negative energy, it can cause crying. You might find that you're just sitting there reading a book or watching a video or whatever it is, and you just start crying. You can't help it. Don't try to stop it. Allow it to happen. That's just energy being released. Okay, it doesn't always have to make sense. You're not always going to know what trauma or negative thing is being released in that moment. I always found for the big events, like if you went through a car accident, let's say, and you held on to that without really going through the emotions of the fear and the anxiety that it might have caused and all that kind of stuff, you just kind of went on with your life. And now it's time for you to look at that emotional trauma and deal with it. You're going to know it's a car accident because you're going to have had thoughts thinking about that car accident, maybe for a few days ahead of time. You'll suddenly start to notice that, why can't I get this one thought out of my head? Why does it keep repeating? You might feel cranky. You might feel agitated by it. You might feel, really kind of grumpy about it. And stressed, right? Just like all balled up inside. That's energy. It's coming up and it wants to be released. It wants to be let go of. It wants you to say, hey, I see this, I feel this, I understand this is coming from when I had that accident 10 years ago. And wow, it's a lot. It's almost overwhelming, but I'm just going to take some deep breaths through it. And if I cry, I cry. If I feel nauseated, I'm going to feel nauseated. And you probably will. Once that energy is released, your body has to assimilate to that empty space. It has to assimilate having gone through that process, and that can make you feel nauseated, and